So we don't just self-focus at this point. We don't just mourn ourselves and our own sin, but we mourn the state of the world, that there are others who are like we were, who are far removed from what God had planned. When I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, particularly the 90s, we were kind of moved into this world of postmodernism, that there's no truth, or what's true for you is not true for me, which is a self-defeating comment. It doesn't make sense. And the church really grabbed onto that and tried to really wrestle with postmodernism. And I've talked to plenty of people who are still wrestling with postmodernism, but society's moved on. It's no longer there is no truth. It's new truth now is where we're at. We're renegotiating what truth looks like, and we're renegotiating sin out of the picture because it's fairly inconvenient to the worldviews around to have sin in there. So interestingly, this is coming to hit the church, because even when I used my example before of when I was a teenager, and I said the two teenagers who wanted to be good disciples of Jesus Christ ended up in bed together every single time. For some in the room, we say, wow, they really did get far off the mark. And some of the room say, what's wrong with that? That's where we are. We're renegotiating what truth is in many ways. And we have to be, if we're mourners who don't just mourn our own sin, but we mourn the state of the world, then we study the world in light of the Word. We have to do that. So how do we know what's right and wrong? How do we know what's sin and what's not sin? How do we define those things? The simplistic but still correct answer is the Bible. It does tell us these things. This is God revealing himself to us to reveal to us how we're supposed to live in the world, what we're supposed to do, who we're supposed to be. Now, the cynical out there will say, really, the Bible, you're going to rely on this 2,000-year-old document, which is really the conversation I was in just a couple months ago. You're outdated. Now, I will point out that we in this country are relying on a 200-year-old document, so the question is, when does the statute of limitations go out on that thing? At what point do we have to wait until it's 300 years that it's now an old, outdated document and we're living in the past? It's not a good argument. And it doesn't get any better, because then we have to ask, well, what is our source for what's right and wrong? Is it musicians? Is it politicians? Is it actors? I hope not. Is it the magazines we read? Is it the books we read? What are the sources for what's right and wrong? Is it simply what we see on news media, or the sitcoms that we watch, or the dramas or movies? What is it that tells us what right and wrong is? If somebody wants to criticize the source of the Bible, okay, criticize, but what's the alternate source that you're looking at? Is it self? That one's not working out for us. See, the thing is, everyone knows that there are problems in the world. We're seeking all kinds of different fixes. If we go to those extremes, the hyper-religious, they'll look to things like self-discipline and the right format of prayer and the right format of worship and the right exact doctrine and the right exact dress to dress and doing it exactly the right way, but it still relies on human sovereignty ultimately. I can do it all myself. I don't need God at this point. Those on the cultural syncretism side of things, they look to things like science and politics and legislation, technology and education. All those things are wonderful. On both ends, those are great things, but they're partial and they're deceitful fixes. And that's the problem. I watched the movie on Netflix this last week, Slingshot. I don't know if you've seen it, the one about delivering water around the world. Very good. Highly recommend it. We need to deliver clean water solutions around the world. It'll change the world. I liked the inventor that's highlighted in that. Wonderful. Wants great things for the world. And he even states in there, he's a brilliant man. And he's looking at other brilliant people in the world, knows lots of inventors, works with hundreds of brilliant people. He says, one day we're going to fix all of these problems. Cancer, we're going to cure it. We're going to get water delivered all over the world. And I actually don't doubt him. The problem is we're going to continue to push off other problems in the world. There's always going to be a problem to fix because we're looking at the symptoms, not the root cause of the problem. And the thing is, we mourn in those cases. Not because we shouldn't be involved. The church should be involved in delivering clean water. The church should be involved in injustice around the world and correcting things. Absolutely. Read the prophets. It's all over the place. But we mourn that we try human-sized solutions to God-sized problems. That's the problem. So we keep pushing off the problems. These aren't human-sized problems we're dealing with. If you go to Luke 17, 26 through 33, Jesus says at some point, he says, you guys are not paying attention now. At some point, you're going to wish you were, and I wish you would now, Jesus is saying, essentially, without the voice crack. Jesus says this, just as in the days of Noah, so also will it be in the days of the Son of Man, when I come back. He says people were eating and drinking, marrying, and being given in marriage up to the day Noah entered the ark. Then the flood came and destroyed them all. Jesus says it was the same in the days of Lot. People were eating and drinking, buying and selling, planting and building. But the day that Lot left Sodom, fire and sulfur rained down from heaven and destroyed them all. He says it will be just like this on the day the Son of Man is revealed. On that day, no one who is sitting on a housetop with possessions inside should go down and get them. Likewise, no one in the field should go back for anything. Remember Lot's wife? Turned into a pillar of salt. Whoever tries to keep their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life will preserve it. And here's the thing. Our solution is going to look stupid to people. They're going to be eating and drinking. They're going to be trying all kinds of alternates to deal with the symptoms when we're talking about the root cause of it all. And people are going to laugh, and they're going to say, it's not going to work. You're relying on that 2,000-year-old book. But here's the thing. If we mourn, we want to be in the middle of the problem. We're supposed to be in the middle of the problem without those who mourn as well. We're supposed to be in the middle of the problem with the solution to the whole thing. We mourn with those who mourn. Yes, we do love to be around people who are hurting because we know the solution. We do love to be around those who suffer, not so that they'll suffer more, not because they're suffering, but because we know who can comfort them. We want to be around those people who long for more than they're getting out of this present life because they get it. They get that they're just surviving rather than thriving, and Jesus Christ has that answer. We mourn with those who celebrate the wrong things. We mourn for those people because they're off track, and we were once like that. And we should be angry, as I said, about injustice and those things that people try and attack that are symptoms of the cause. We should go after those. The prophets tell us that. Jesus tells us that. We should care about human slavery, sex trafficking, and creation care, racial righteousness. All those things should bother us. We should be very involved in those, but we know something deeper that's causing them. And so we bring to those not just the symptom solution, but the root cause solution, because if we just fix the symptoms, we're always going to have those problems until Jesus Christ comes. God's kingdom come, God's will be done. Church, that's our fight. To be involved in injustice and fixing that, but to bring Jesus with that, to actually fix it. We shouldn't be fooled by deceiving fixes, by just hitting the symptoms. I want to buy the next iPhone with a clear conscience that it wasn't built using human trafficking and child labor. I can't be guaranteed of that right now. We should be in that fight. I want to make sure clean water is delivered around the world. Good organizations, nonprofit Christian organizations are doing this and bringing the gospel with them. I want to be involved in racial righteousness. That's part of our fight, church. But it's because we know what stands beneath that and what will truly fix it. We know what God has in store with God's kingdom, and everything that tries to tear down other people is attacking God's kingdom. And if we're kingdom people, we see the world like Jesus and we go after it in Jesus' name. So we mourn with those who suffer. We mourn with those who face injustice. We mourn when people don't hear God's call to love and to obedience, and their heart fades away. They forget even who God is, and they give up.